Memory can be a hard thing to grasp, especially as you get older, and especially if you drink a lot. That can make telling stories a strange thing. Over the years, as you tell the same stories about your past, they begin to take on a life of their own. They fade, and you start to fill in the blanks with your own details. They morph and evolve. The exciting becomes more exciting. The boring parts disappear. Then if you ever try writing them down, you find yourself truly making things up. Here's a true story that happened to me maybe 4 or 5 years ago. True details are fuzzy, but the essence of what actually occurred will forever haunt me. I'm the one telling it, but this is your story, Gino. May you finally find justice and peace. I used to do a lot of my drinking downtown, at a spot we'll just call the Wing Bar. I would go alone and sit barside, usually killing time before playing cards at a shop down the block. The place had mediocre wings at best, but I usually just gulped down a couple of pints without talking to anyone except for the bartender. It was dark and quiet, and there was never much of a crowd. It was like there was a bad energy I could not sense. They had a special-looking regular who was usually around while I was in. They called him Gino. He wore outdated sports clothes, a bright yellow motorcycle jacket, and had some thick gold chains around his neck. He had tanned, leathery skin and a big nose sticking out from between two dark, piercing eyes. Eyes that had seen more things than you or I. From those gaping nostrils and the way that he spoke to the bartenders, I assumed that he was just some talkative old junkie. One day he walked over to me while the place was basically empty, and he got chatting away. I was put off at first, but he seemed calm enough for me to handle. I can't really remember what he said for an introduction, but I love a good, charismatic drunk, so I let the man talk, and I mostly just listened. He had a soft, raspy voice and spoke like a Canadian redneck. I was the most sexually abused person in Canadian history. I paused. He began by telling me that he was born and raised in Kingston, to an extremely dysfunctional family. My parents were junkies and they had nothing to do with my life. They were never in the house I grew up in. When I was a kid, my brothers and sisters would rent me out to a doctor at St. Mary's Hospital for dope money. I meant nothing to them. He would fuck me and make me touch dead bodies. He would put cut-off dicks in my mouth. He used the cadavers they had in there for research. That cunt made me fuck dead bodies. And he gave my brothers and sisters fuck all for it. They just got to change to go buy hash or booze. I was only fucking 7 years old. He had my curiosity, but now he had my undivided attention. Gino went on to tell me that when he became a teenager, he escaped the clutches of the necrophiliac doctor, left Kingston and his demented family behind, and moved to the streets of Toronto. There he got a job at Maple Leaf Gardens as a rink rat, cleaning the place up and doing some maintenance. While working there, he was continuously and aggressively sexually assaulted by the management. They used to stick glass bottles and broomsticks on my ass. Me and all the other guys had shit blood for days. You couldn't tell anybody about it because the next time they'd just be there doing it to you too. They were all disgusting fucking pigs. I had to stop for a moment and reel everything in. Just walking down the street, I would assume that this guy was a tad offside, but right now he wasn't ranting to me. He was offering me his story. Why are you telling me this? I asked. He took a long swig of beer, paused, and softly spoke. Because I have cancer in my prostate and I'm going to die in 6 weeks. I just want to tell my story to people that will listen. I looked into the man's eyes and witnessed a melancholic sincerity I didn't know existed. I felt gross and heartbroken, but all I wanted was for him to keep talking to me. It was one of the most interesting things I'd ever heard. It was pretty selfish, but I was being nice to him. Oh, I'm sorry about that. That's all I could say to him. He took a big swill from a sweaty bottle of Coors Light and said, "It doesn't matter. Not too much does anymore. The most important thing that happened in my life was what happened later. You know what? That fucker got caught. You know that, right?" I didn't know what he was talking about at the time, but later I looked it up, and the scandal at Maple Leaf Gardens was very much an actual account. In 1997, Gordon Stuckless pled guilty to sexually assaulting 24 boys. This took place as he worked as the equipment manager at the Gardens between the years of 1969 and 1988. He was sentenced to 6 years and received parole in 2001. 2013 came along, and Stuckless faced 100 new charges as more victims came forward. By By 2016, he was convicted again of sexually assaulting 18 boys and was sentenced to 6.5 years. He died later in 2020 after this conversation with Gino took place. No, I never knew that was the thing. Again, sorry about that. What happened? Ding ding. He proceeded to answer a cell phone call and strutted around the place, carrying himself like some hotshot coke dealer. He seemed like he could definitely be the type. I realized that it was late to go play cards, but I wasn't ready to pay my bill and take off just yet. I ordered myself another pint. She dropped it off as she ended his call and came back over like the conversation had never paused. Years later, when that prick was on trial, I had to go testify. There was a bunch of us. I drove up with one of the guys I still knew. When everything was over with, we drove out way into the sticks, and he parked his car and we walked away under the woods to the top of a cliff. While we were up there, he looked me in the eyes and he said, "No justice was done today." I asked him what he meant, and all he did was say again, "No justice was done today." Then he went and jumped off the fucking cliff right there in front of me. Dead. Right fucking there. I didn't know what to do. I walked back up to the car. When I sat back in the passenger seat, there was an old McDonald's bag, and I found a pen in the glove box. To this day, I swear to fucking God that I'm illiterate. I was never taught how to read and write. But I picked up that bag, and I wrote this. He proceeded to recite a poem to me by memory. I can't remember a single line of it. He spoke to me in a hushed, serious voice, using a vocabulary he hasn't been expressing with me previously. The theme was the protection of children and how vulnerable they are. I thought that it was a very strong poem. I didn't think that he was bullshitting me. It was sad, but powerful. A few years later, my story got out there and I ended up on the Oprah Winfrey show. I swear to fucking God, she had me on there and we talked all about the scandals and I read my poem to everyone, right on live television. He told me that there was a rehab center or some sort of street health facility in Oshawa with a plaque on their wall with his poem dedicated to him by Oprah Winfrey. I started to feel skeptical. "You were actually on Oprah?" I asked with a condescending distrust. I hate to say it, but this was the hardest part of his story to believe. "Hey," he called over to the bartender. "Do you have a phone book?" The bartender was a nice, shy young woman with thick glasses. She looked behind the bar for a couple of minutes and came over with a thick, yellow tome and set it down in front of us. Gino grabbed it and flipped through the thin pages, making his way to Oshawa. He pulled a tiny pair of reading glasses out from his jacket pocket and immediately morphed into a different person, a negative Superman. He called back over to the bartender after finding the number he needed. "Can I use your phone, please?" She slowly made her way over with the cordless phone. She seemed like she was used to his energy. There was still nobody else in the place. It was usually that way, and that's the way I liked it. He grabbed the phone, thanked her, and quickly dialed up a number from the book. I wasn't sure what to expect, but someone answered and he began talking to them. "Hey, Kelly? It's Gino. How you doing, hon? I'm just wondering if you can read my plaque to someone I'm here with. Could you do that for me, please?" He handed me the phone, and I hesitantly raised it to my ear. "Hello?" "Hi there. So you want me to read Gino's plaque to you?" Okay. She went on to recite the exact same poem that he had just told me, word for word. I was flabbergasted. At the end, she went on to say that the plaque was given as some kind of commemorative award to Gino from, sure enough, Oprah Winfrey. The woman sounded legit. "Is there anything else that I can do for you?" I could tell that she was trying her best to be nice, but his calls were becoming a little tiring to her. I did not blame her. It was a very strange situation. No thank you. Bye. I handed the phone back to Gino. "Thanks, Kelly. You know I appreciate you. Take care of yourself, okay?" He hung up the phone, slid it across the bar, and looked back at me. "See? I told you. I was on Oprah." I sat there and thought about everything that had just happened. This poor soul was telling his tragic life story to me, and I'm pretty sure it was because he was about to die and was high on blow. Before we started talking, he was in and out of the bathroom. He was sniffing nonstop and his jaw was clenching, like he was chewing on concrete. I wasn't judging him. If I was about to die, I'd be telling my tale and getting fucked up too. "Well, that's crazy, man," I said. "What a wild story." His phone started going off again. "Well, I appreciate you listening, bud. I gotta go. I gotta take this. That was the last thing that he ever said to me. When I was done my beer, I squared up with the bartender, grabbed my bag, and headed on home. I was too late to go play cards. Gino just paced around on his phone for the rest of the time. I never saw him again.